afternoon, good morning, hello everyone, welcome along to rounds 3 and 4 of the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup for 2020. We are at the home of British motorsport, Silverstone circuit. There you can see the gantry for what it promises to be two fantastic races. We saw in round 1 in Barcelona some incredible action across the field, and there's the conditions that are facing the drivers. Absolutely perfect conditions for racing. 22 degrees, clear skies, almost a good day for sunbathing as well. 5.8 kilometres is the circuit layout, the Silverstone circuit as it is in its current GP format. A place that hopefully the real World Super Cup will be visiting when it comes to the middle of July. Still on that schedule and the schedule for Formula 1. Fingers crossed it stays there. My name is Ben Constant-Duras, and we are going to see two 25-minute races and the qualifying session coming up in approximately 15 minutes. Alongside me is, well, virtually anyway, is Jan Seifert, who's been busy commentating all morning at various races across the world. And Jan now joins us. It was a very, very entertaining first round to the championship. We saw class at the front of the field and a few guys that we know at the front of the field in the real world really struggling, Jan.
Yeah, good morning, welcome everybody to the next two rounds here at the Silverstone circuit, and the car's already on track for the free practice. And yeah, as you say, Ben, we saw a quite interesting race, or two races at the Barcelona circuit, and I think we will have the same here, because it's like in the real Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup, where we have real close fights between all the drivers.
Absolutely. You're watching practice that is running right now. We've got about 13 minutes left of that practice session. It's been running for quite a while, although only a couple of laps completed by our top runners. Aykan Guven is a man who took one victory in race 2 at Barcelona. Larry ten Voorde took the opening race victory, which means that they sit equal on points at the head of the championship with 45 points each. Haven't seen too much of Larry over the last couple of weeks, but Aykan Guven really starring a couple of nights ago in the IMSA race that was held at Laguna Seca, and showing that not only can he dominate a one-make field, but also he can fly the flag for Porsche on the international stage as well.
Yeah, he was flying on the Porsche 911 RSR at the IMSA circuit, and yeah, he proved his skills also in the weapon there, and now he's back here in the 911 Cup car, fighting with the same car as everybody in the whole field. So that's the one-make cups from Porsche, so everybody has the same chances, and it's just up to the driver and the team to find the right setup and to have the best running as a driver.
So that is Aykan. You can see Aychan, I think is the way it's pronounced, on our screen in the white and green machine. His main rival, Larry ten Voorde, from at least Barcelona. The two of them really dominated, didn't they? There is Larry, orange and white. Those two kind of class the field over the rest.
Yeah, we had those two fighting from lap 1 to the last laps in the Barcelona track. But also we have to say that Nick Tandy, he was quite fast in as one of the pro drivers from Porsche, of the factory drivers. And he was very fast also at Barcelona, while we saw him here just going back to the pits. And but he was a bit unlucky in the races. So I think he can prove himself to be quick again here at his home track at the Silverstone.
Yeah, so Nick Tandy, also another man flying the flag for Porsche in international races at IMSA. He actually didn't feature very highly on the final classifications, got tangled up in 2 accidents in Barcelona, so we'll be really hoping to get that Mobil 1 liveried car into a much better position. He has great experience on iRacing and is able to compete with the very best, and was just very unlucky when it came to actually every single race. I think I've commented on him over the last couple of weeks. He's been unlucky. He's just finding himself in the wrong place. So he needs to get himself a good qualifying, get himself a sharp end of the field, and hopefully we'll see Nick, who is a wild card in this championship. He does not necessarily take away points from others. He is one of the Porsche factory drivers, and therefore we're just splattering a few of those into this field to mix things up. Another one, Lawrence Van Thor, for instance. Simona Silvestro was also quite impressive on what was effectively her debut, really, on iRacing, which is the platform that we're using. There she is in the ABB car, usually Formula E test driver. And again, one of the kind of celebrities, if you like, in this field. I'm surprised, actually, that she's here. There were Formula E have finally visited and got into the party of sim racing, and that is why we don't have Andrea Lotterer or Neil Jarni. They are representing Porsche in the Formula E race. It's happening right at the moment. But a good, healthy field of 30 drivers, a lot, probably about 20 of them, still with their rookie license on iRacing. So quite a long way behind some of the guys at the front of the field who have huge experience, Jan, and that counts for a lot.
Yeah, so we have a nice mix of the factory drivers, of rookies in iRacing, as you say. It's a simulation we are using here. But we have also one very newcomer, which is the reigning champion of the real Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, Michael Ammermüller. He's joining the party here at Silverstone, and we are very much looking forward to welcome him here after he had to miss round 1 and 2 at Barcelona because of some technical issues with his simulator. But now he fixed everything and he's back here and filling up at Silverstone round 3 and 4.
Yeah, so far it doesn't seem like he's entered into the practice session, so I hope everything is all right with Ammermüller, because perhaps he's on the entry list but can't see him on the practice session right now. So hopefully we'll get to see him. The BWT liveried pink car, always very easy to spot. Teammates, of course, to Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. Yes, there we go, number 2. Dylan Pereira, sorry, who is third in the championship with 34 points after finishing third in the opening race and third in the second race. So he's a man to watch, Dylan Pereira. From Luxembourg, we've got the majority of the real-world drivers taking part in this virtual edition of the Super Cup. It's organised, the real-world edition, by Oliver Schwab. And Jan, you've been speaking to him after that first round to see exactly how this kind of brave new world went for him. Yes,
so we had the chance to talk to him after, and ask him about his impressions of the first 2 rounds at Barcelona.
Well, I had a very good impression of the first 2 rounds because obviously it was a very spectacular race. I actually don't want to mention any cars flying around, but I think that was definitely a very entertaining factor. But besides this, we also saw a very high level of competition on the sporting side, because when you especially think about the end of the first race, how Ayhan Shan and Larry were really giving it everything they had. I mean, this was racing at its best, and therefore I'm happy to see, or I was very happy to see, that what makes us famous in the real world with the Super Cup was exactly mirrored also then into the virtual world, that we have amongst the best drivers around, and they really give it everything they got.
They will give everything they got here at Silverstone as well. And so Oli Schwab, he's looking very much forward to these 2 upcoming rounds.
Practice is still ongoing at Silverstone ahead of our short qualifying session and then 2 25-minute races where we will see who has mastered iRacing. They've had a couple of weeks since they first raced at Barcelona. For many, there was a kind of a short introduction period from never being on this platform before to racing in Barcelona, but a few of them have managed to get a little bit more practice in since that time, and hopefully we're going to see a better kind of not just domination from 2 people, but more of a mix of things.
So, going here with Christian Engelhardt, also one of the wildcard drivers in the ZF car. And the Silverstone circuit is quite interesting. It has all the different styles of corners, and so that makes it very interesting. Usually the weather is also one of the factors, but here weather stays all the same as we are running in the simulation. And Christian Engelhardt, he is also quite new to the simulation, and so that's why he was struggling a little bit in the beginning, but now he's climbing up the sheets.
We did see a lot of chaos a bit further back from the leading contenders because we've got such a massive field spread of kind of experience. Someone like Jordan Love, for instance, at the moment down in 28th position in this practice session, 6.5 seconds back per lap. He has done quite a few laps as well, but still running on his rookie license, Jan. Surprised to see so many drivers haven't really got many more races under their belts since they first entered Barcelona.
I mean, the rookie license you see in iRacing, there's a license system. It doesn't really count as you, if you only do official races, then you can climb up the license system. But probably they were testing and training hard in their private sessions. And also Porsche provided another testing day or test day in advance to the Silverstone race, and so I think they were practicing quite a lot in there, and so that's why they stood with their rookie license, but now also be much faster.
One of the really entertaining things about virtual racing, whereas something you can't really do in the real world, is you have everyone racing, of course, from home. In their different countries, and we have such a massive field spread of countries that people are racing in all kinds of different time zones. So whilst the other day we had the American guys doing their race in the evening, that meant in Europe it was almost the middle of the night for all of the British competitors, and then of course you've got the Australians as well, and we've got a good few Australian New Zealanders. Jackson Evans, for instance, a driver from New Zealand, one of the junior drivers for Porsche this season, and he was pretty impressive as well. Got a 4th position in Barcelona. There I think we are looking at him, but he's 3rd in practice so far. And certainly a man to watch. He got tangled up in some chaos in the second race, so we didn't manage to see his potential in that second race. But it's so cool to have people from across the world, perhaps people who would not normally have been able to compete in the Porsche Supercup, but because of this virtual edition and the ability to run from home, we're having everyone entering from all around the world.
Yeah, we've from all around the world, and they're driving from home. So they stay at home, drive from home. They have their simulator rig standing there and joining the party, joining the races from the home side. So from everybody all over the world, as you say. And but in the end, the race they do is in here, and it's all in one race. So, and I really like the stuff they do, and I hope that we will see many more races coming up also after the situation we have at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got this is kind of just the excuse to get virtual racing into the public eye. This has been around sim racing, as you well know, Jan, for so many years, but perhaps behind the public eye. But now with no real motorsport to watch, suddenly people are waking up to just how professional and just how impressive these kind of events look.
Yeah, so at the moment they have to, there's no other motorsports at the moment beside the virtual one, and so now everybody has an eye on it and see, as you say, it is professional. There are professional sim racing drivers and also competing against pro drivers from the real world, and you see it's quite competitive in all the professional series. And here, for example, we have the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, and it's exactly the same as you see on the real tracks, and which makes it so nice to look at it.
And someone like iRacing Guven is as competitive in the real world as he is in the virtual world. His iRating is absolutely fantastic. Just kind of put into context what 7,878 means in iRacing in comparison to some of the best iRaces in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you start from a very low number, which is around 2,500, and then you have to climb up in the official races to get to races number, and this is an amazing number he has, and so you see he's testing and practicing quite a lot.
Larry Turnbull fastest in this practice session, which is about to end, ahead of iRacing Guven by less than 1/10 of a second. It is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. Welcome along then to the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup. We're about to get qualifying underway. Just a quick 15-minute session of qualifying to set the grid for race 1. We will then go into a second race, which will be the grid formed by that first race result. So 2 opportunities for these drivers. There is the layout, 5.8 kilometres. The newest edition of Silverstone that's had so many guises over the years with this kind of new cut through in the Wellington Straight. Provides a good braking zone down into where the old pits used to be. 22 degrees, a lovely day, but that 31 degrees track temperature will have an effect on how these guys are able to manage their tyres throughout the 25-minute encounter. That is very important to make sure that you don't use up the tyres too early and then have nothing left at the end of the race. My name is Ben Constanduris. Alongside me virtually, Jan Seifert, all the way... Are you in Germany, Jan, at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Germany, and so I'm really much looking forward to the next 2 rounds here. And as you already said, it's the Silverstone circuit is quite interesting also from the layout. I mean, the weather you already explained, but also we have so many fast corners where you have a lot of pressure on the tires, on the outside tires, and you have to come along for the races with one set of tires. There's no pit stop, nothing, so it's a one-make cup. So the real virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup. So, and that's it's all about the driver and their setup. So yeah, and here we go, starting the qualifying.
Now we've got 2 teammates working with each other. There's quite a few long straights here, and so that will help the slipstream effect a little bit. These guys will have been in private lobbies together over the last couple of weeks, practicing and helping each other out, making sure that they can do the very best that they can. I think, am I right in saying that the setup is fixed in this race, so they can't actually change anything?
Yes, the setup is fixed. The only things they can change is the brake bias, for example, maybe not to overheat also the front or rear axle, but in the end, so they go all with the same setting, with the same wings, with the same toe, with the same camber, everything. And so it's all about the driver and the strategy about saving tires.
So Larry ten Voorde is sitting behind his teammate Jesse van Hoyke. I think that's how we say it. It's been a tricky one to get exactly correct, but that's I blame my father if I've got that wrong. He's told me that's how I do it. Now, Larry pulling out of the slipstream, interestingly. I don't think Jesse is the man to sit behind and therefore slow him up. So Larry's going to go on it alone. He's being chased down by Nick Tandy in the third of the queue. So Tandy is now trying to clear Jesse as well. And Larry will be the first person to set a lap time. So psychologically, that's quite a nice little thing because he'll be kind of laying down the gauntlet. But has he got the tyres underneath him quite yet? Does he need another lap? We're going to go on board then with Larry ten Voorde for this first lap around Silverstone. Jan, talk us through it.
Yeah, so turn number 1, a very, very fast right-hander. You just brake a little bit, one downshift here, and then a very fast left-hander into one of the slowest sections of the track. And that's all the, let's say, new layout, because I'm used to drive the old layout still. But so second gear, everything here, and then you accelerate and you need to carry all the speed out here onto the first long straight, going onto, let's say, the old part of the track. And then you brake in here, and the braking is very, very difficult because you turn in quite late, and this corner you brake into until the apex, and then here again carry out all the speed using the curbs, using the whole track width, and we have the fast right-hander onto the old start and finish straight, let's say, and then the very fast right-hander again here, braking a little bit, 1 gear down, and then back on throttle, using the whole track width again. Also here you have to have an eye on track limits, because iRacing itself, so the simulation itself, is controlling track limits, and so you have to have an eye on that. So through that very fast part here onto Hangar Straight now, and then we almost did 1 lap with Larry ten Voorde here at the Silverstone track. And I think you really have to practice. The track layout doesn't look very very much difficult. But it is, as I said before, you have long long turns, which use the tires quite hard. Last part here, chicane, left-hander, second gear, over the curbs on the left, over the curbs on the right-hand side, and then try to stabilize the car to have a good exit here for the start and finish straight.
It's a long lap, over 2 minutes. 2 minutes 3.591 for Larry ten Voorde. His main rival crossing the line now, Aykan Guven, and he's done a 3.7, so Guven a little bit slower on that first lap, and Larry ten Voorde's gauntlet set was a strong one. Only a couple of cars actually finished a lap. Tandy 5th position at the moment with a 4.2. So they will go again, and we expect to get a bit more grip out of the tyres. The brakes will be a bit warmer, and this second lap should be stronger. There is no chance, though, to come into the pits and change for a new set of tyres like you may see in other forms of motorsport. Generally in the Porsches, when it comes to qualifying, they get out there and get the laps in as much as possible.
Yeah, you have to use the tires within 2 laps, and you really have to concentrate on that. And it's the same here. So you go out, you set your lap time, and then you have to have it on point to be fast and to get all the turns right.
Watching Aykan Guven, second position, but he's run a little bit wide there, and he's having to let the traffic go through. So Guven is not going to improve on this lap. He's backing out of it. And it was Max van Splutteren who he let through for Team GP Elite, sorry. A rookie in the championship this year. And van Splutteren then heads him into the sweeping left-right of Maggots and Beckett's, trying to balance the car, make sure you've got not too much understeer in it and not too much oversteer. Oversteer, the killer of sim racing, because it's really hard to fully detect from kind of the lack of movement in your rear end, let's say. When you're sitting in your seat at home, you don't have that pendulum effect like you would do if you were in the actual car.
Yeah, you drive more visualized, so you drive more with your eyes than your body feelings, and so that's what makes it very hard also for the pro real drivers. You really have to feel in your steering wheel what the car is doing, while in the real race car you feel it, as you say, in your body what the car is doing, and then you can counter steer and correct everything.
A quick thanks to René de Boer, who's already correcting my pronunciation of Jesse van Kijkak. There we go. I think I said that right, hopefully, René. Thank you very much for your help. And of course, you can talk to us using the hashtag virtualPMSC on Twitter. And thanks for joining us wherever you are joining us on the various different streams. So, second lap down, and it's still Larry ten Voorde, who did not improve, actually. Aykan Guven is back in pit lane, so that's interesting. It's not necessarily, well, I suppose he's going to get another couple of laps in, but that does mean he's going to have to go through this whole process of warming brakes and tyres up again. Dylan Pereira also resetting back to the pits. Dylan's only in 8th position right now, a man that I would expect to see him much higher up the field. There's Joey Mawson from Australia. He was in the, I think he got a podium. Did he get a podium? He was certainly in the top 5 of our second race in Barcelona. So it is ten Voorde, Guven and Jackson Evans, our top 3 for the moment. Max van Splutteren in 4th, and Nick Tandy in the top 5 right now. But there's a lot of drivers who have yet to set a time. The likes of Lawrence Van Thor, for instance, Richard Lietz, Sven Muller, Jaap van Lagen. Names that we would expect to see at the head of the field if we were at the real Silverstone. But a little bit... Someone like Jaap van Lagen, such a master in a Supercup car, or a Carrera Cup car for that matter. But when it comes to iRacing, he is very much still a rookie and has, well, certainly struggled in Barcelona. Would like to see Jaap a little bit higher up the field. And I wonder actually whether he's still being helped by Nicky Katzberg. Katzberg was giving him a lot of advice, I seem to remember, on the last round. He's also seemingly a bit of a road traffic chicane here. Van Lagen through Maggots and Beckett's, but he's got 2 cars stuck up behind him. The 85 machine is Richard Lietz, and so Lietz is all over the back of him. And what's the other car just behind that? Quite see the number. Either way, Leitz is going to dive down the inside at Stowe, and that's going to upset Van Lagen's lap time, having to let 2 cars go down the inside of him. So Van Lagen won't be very happy with that. It is the number 8 machine, so that is Leon Kohler, and Leon's up in 6th position. Oh no! That is not what you're supposed to be doing in practice. Jaap Van Lagen taking out Richard Leitz. They'll have damage from that as well, so it'd be worth them going back into pit lane and getting a reset, because they don't want to be carrying damage. So what happened here? Van Lagen totally missing his braking point. Actually, I don't know if he did. Do you know, I think he may have got through. We're just having a few technical issues with our commentator Jan Seifert, but he'll be back with us. I think Jan would have made Jaap would have made it round that corner. Let's have a look from a different angle. He was a bit tight into the turn, but I think he would have made it. It was just Leitz was pretty slow on the apex. So either way, there's a little taste of what we might see when it comes to racing, because there'll be plenty of that. I'm always a bit pained by watching Supercup races, because I do love these cars and I hate to see them damaged. But when it comes to racing, these guys are not afraid to do a bit of rubbing. So when it comes to virtual racing, there are no limits. Here's our poleman so far, Larry Ten Voorde, with just under 5 minutes remaining of the session. Ten Voorde coming to the end of another lap, and he has 13 hundredths. Oh, dearie me, gets it all wrong on the exit of the final turn. Did he complete that lap? I don't think he did. I can't remember. The finishing line is a bit further back, but the start line is seemingly where they're taking the timing from, which is halfway down that straight. So he just missed out. Sometimes you can kind of slide your way over the finishing line because it's a bit closer to that last turn. Larry Ten Voorde is our pole man for the moment. The Turkish driver Ayachan Guven in 2nd position, and then Jackson Evans in 3rd, Max van Splutteren in 4th, and Nick Tandy in 5th. We haven't really seen much change since those first laps, so that's quite a surprise that they managed to get so much performance out of the first lap of tyres, and perhaps that's why then they've reset and gone back out with a second set on. Still lots of drivers yet to set a time. Richard Leitz, Sven Muller, Clement Mathieu, Jaap Van Lagen, Jukka Honkavori. Now we saw Jukka with a really, really strong performance in Barcelona, but I think he's having connection issues by the looks of things. And so he's not actually been able to get out to circuit yet. Jordan Love was a tail ender, and Roar Lindland with another tail ender in our first round. Oh, Guven was an improvement on the last lap. 7 thousandths behind. Ten Voorde now at the head of the field. It's still going to be a titanic battle between those two. Look at that, 0.4 of a second then separating them in 3rd position with Jackson Evans.
Yeah, we're gonna see probably the same fight we saw already at Barcelona, and the Guven is trying really hard to get these 7 thousandths of a second, get it done. And what you explained in that we saw not so many guys being faster in their second lap is probably because of using the tires. You really have to be on point in 1st or 2nd lap to squeeze out everything out of the tires you can have.
And that's why they then reset and got themselves a new set of tyres and got the temperatures back to where they wanted to go again.
Yeah, correct. When you go back to the pits, everything is, let's say, reset, and then you can start once again and try to get another run with a second set of tires, let's say.
Now, you were saying that the track limits always a problem here at Silverstone, always a bit of an issue in the real world. Track limits is governed internally in the software of iRacing, and so you do get kind of points if you run off track. But I noticed that the incident count has turned down to unlimitless on this race, so perhaps in qualifying that will stop them from completing a lap. You won't get that time if you run off the circuit, but when it comes to the race, they can have as many incidents as they like, and they won't have any penalties for it.
Yeah, correct. And so race control, let's say, is controlling the penalty points later for the incidents they had, and so you get penalty points for different incidents and warnings as well for the upcoming races. So that's why we have this different.
Ooh, Guven's taken pole position. He's found another couple of hundredths of a second, and now look, he's 3 hundredths ahead of Larry ten Voorde. Very impressive, just chipping away at his times, lap by lap. Nick Tandy also doing the same thing, but Tandy has not improved his position. We just saw him completing a lap, which was an 0.4250, but he is still behind Leon Köhler in 5th spot. Jesse van Koik. I need to go back to reading again. Thank you very much. It's going to be a problem all day long. I thought he improved, but he didn't, because he's just come over the line there. Here's Patrick Pilet, a man that we didn't see in the first round of the championship. He's come in and taken over the Ansys car. And Pilet, another of those stars of the Porsche works teams around the world, whether it be in prototypes back in the day or in the RSR GTs as well.
Yes, so he just jumped in and he replaces Andre Lotterer, or better say Lars Kern, who's also in media duties.
So there we go then. We have completed our qualifying session. And let's have a look at how they line up. Ayhan Guven then on the pole position alongside Larry ten Voorde, with Jackson Evans in 3rd and Max van Spluteren that early lap time setting him on the 2nd row of the grid. Leon Köhler 5th, with Nick Tandy only in 6th position. Expect the Mobil 1 car to move up through the field. Then it's Van Kuijke and Patrick Pilet in 8th. So actually, despite this being one of his first times, a good qualifying. Joey Mawson in 9th position. Dylan Pereira will be frustrated with only 10th spot, a whole second back from our leading two. Then Lawrence Van Thor and Marius Nacken. On row 7, Dane Conright and Christian Engelhardt right in the centre of the pack again, hopefully staying out of trouble because Barcelona was not happy for him. Richard Leitz and then Marvin Klein, one of our rookie drivers. And don't forget, we do have different classes here as well. Julian Andalea and Simona Di Silvestro, 2 of our star drivers. Jordan Love in 19th. Jean-Baptiste Simonauer in 20th for Lechner Middle East. And then Fabian Vulvend, one of our 2 lady races. Sven Muller, Stephen Grove and Pontus Fredriksson. It still goes though. Philip Sager, Mark Sinny, Matteo Lorena and Jukka Honkavori did not set a time, and I don't think we will see Honkavori in this race. Roar Lindland, Clement Mathieu and Jaap van Lagen at the back of the field. No, sadly, we still are missing Mikael Ammermuller. So still problems for him and his setup at home. And no sign of Jukka Honkavori either. So that's a big shame for Honkavori, who is a good star in our first races in Barcelona. It's round 3 and round 4 at Silverstone. And we are, messy. A couple of jump starts further back. And some contact as well. Oh, the Vodafone car, that's Fabian Vulvend up and upside down. Some of the pros further back getting into collisions, but it's clean at the front. And is that Van Spluteren up to 2nd? I think it might be Van Spluteren up to 2nd position. A great start from him. And Guven's been hung out to dry. He's got the inside line though for the next corner as we have more chaos further back. Oh dearie me, what a mess. Hugo Bosscar getting through. That's good news because that's Julian Andelauer. But Jordan Love is one of our drivers at the tail of the field. And I think that was Christian Engelhardt upside down as well and having to reset. So we've lost Engelhardt, Leitz, Jordan Love, Fabian Vulvend, all now reset back to the pits. And they will be at the tail end of the field. But there's still things to fight for because remember, the results of this race set the grid for the second race. So everything is still available.
Yeah, so as you say, great start from Max van Spluteren, but Guven, he fought back his 2nd position. And now another crash.
Oh, and that's Patrick Pilet off. He's collected another of the Team GP Elite cars. And that's Van Kuijk. So Jesse is now facing the wrong direction. And unless they had big contact with the wall, let's have a quick look here. Oh, Van Coit just coming across Patrick Pilet there. Maybe didn't see him. Oh, and there was big contact into the wall, so he will need to reset. But Pilet may get away with that and be able to continue. But certainly damage for Jesse. And the teammates then at the front of the field. Ten Voorde and Splunteren as Nick Tandy makes his way up. Jackson Evans has not had a very good lap. And must have been a mistake through Maggots and Beggots for Evans, because Evans now behind Nick Tandy, and Tandy's up to 4th position. But early on the brakes into the final chicane, and Tandy kind of actually putting Jackson Evans off there a little bit. Evans didn't really know where to go. End of lap 1 then. It's Ten Voorde from Jackson Evans in 2nd position. No, my wrong. Hang on a second. Larry is 2nd, Van Splinteren 3rd, and then Nick Tandy in 4th position. And there's Jackson Evans in 5th spot. Wheeler in 6th, and Van Thor has made a good start. Picking up more and more experience, Lawrence Van Thor, again doing other races outside of this Super Cup has definitely helped Van Thor. He's got a great rating on iRacing, but he's not had a huge amount of luck. Oh dear, that's a very, very second-hand looking Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. Oh, it was already. Stephen Grove was already in a mess before it even started. And behind him is Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. Oh, I see. So Simonauer gets through. Oh, that's oh no, that's Jesse again trying to recover and then getting caught in a second accident. And again, more spinners. That is Matteo Lorena. So the tail of the field is all a mess. Philip Sager in the pits, Fabian Wolven in the pits, Christian Engelhardt in the pits, Richard Leitz and Jordan Love. And there's plenty of others who have had chaos as well.
Yeah, once you had a crash and you see the damage on the car, and I mean the car is not drivable as you know it, so you really feel it in your steering, in your driving. So and that makes it even more difficult for the drivers. While we are here on board with Lawrence Van Thor, and he's knocking at the door and saying, "Hi, I'm here, and I want to go through."
7th spot then, just missing that sausage curb on the left-hand side. You definitely want to miss the one on the right-hand side. That will really upset the balance of the car. Not quite the same kind of curb bashing that we saw at that final chicane in Barcelona. Very difficult thing to master, but good to see that Tag Heuer car at the head of the field. That's an official livery for this year. So you haven't had a chance really to see too much of the real-world cars out on real-world circuits. Oh, and that was a mistake. Was that a mistake from Jackson Evans? And very easy pickings for Leon Kurlet down the inside. And Evans is going to lose 2 spots here because Van Thor is going to come up the inside as well. They still run side by side. And Evans gets squeezed off, so he's being bullied out of the top positions here. And again, now, with lacking momentum, he's going to be under pressure from Nakin and Conwright, who were stuck together in Barcelona the whole of the race, weren't they? And now they're here at Silverstone and again finding themselves squabbling over the same bit of tarmac.
Yes, they do, but from Jackson Evans, it looked strange because he was slowing down once again going into this part of the track. So probably he also had maybe a slowdown before. So that means he had to slow down for a couple of seconds to gain back a little bit time. While we're here with Simona de Silvestro, it's the second woman here in the Cup, and she's in the ABB 911 Cup car, a little bit early on throttle, a little too much momentum, and then she almost spun, but she could get the car back in straight line.
Yeah, so just having a quick look at Jackson Evans and what happened to him, just into on the exit of 3, just losing the rear end and unable to get onto the throttle because he was sideways. So that was the kind of a little bit too deep, effectively, into the braking zone of 3, and that's why he lost those positions. Here is De Silvestro in 20th position. She did actually pick up some points. I seem to remember her finishing in 14th or 15th in the second race in Barcelona. So she's hunting down Jaap van Lagen, who looks as though he's got through all of the mess and trouble pretty unscathed. De Silvestro's car is a little bit damaged. You can see the damage on the left front of the car there. But Van Lagen's car looks okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, Van Lagen's car looks good, but Silvestre, she's in the slipstream of Van Lagen, and Van Lagen, there's nobody in front of him, so maybe that's the little advantage the ABB car has now. She's looking a little for the gap, and then we had one guy spinning. It was Marcini, and he's again in the fight with Patrick Pilet. Pilet in the yellow and white car on the inside. There was no, I think there was no contact, wasn't it?
I just think he got scared off. He kind of went for the apex, and it was a very fast corner, of course, that turn one. He kind of went to steer in, and then suddenly realised there was someone on his inside and kind of steered away from him. And then, thankfully, there's a huge amount of runoff on the outside of turn one there, so he was able to get away unscathed without hitting any walls. But it's just so difficult when you're sim racing, because you don't have the perception that you would have in the real world, being able to turn your head to the left and the right.
Yes, and these guys are driving in different setups. So one setup can be only a single screen in front of you. Then it's even worse to see left and right. Some of them driving in a triple screen, and so that makes it more easy to look left and right. And so it's different setups, and also these kind of setups makes it different in driving.
Yeah, exactly. Different feel. That's one of the variables that we do have in the virtual world, is the kind of equipment that these guys have. Porsche making it very easy for all of these drivers to get involved in the championship by providing packages that they could buy into, whether it be the full-blown 50K's worth of motion sim and VR headset, or a very simple basically wheel and pedals that they then could fix to their desks and drive. And we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I think last week Jacques Villeneuve was competing with an Xbox controller. I don't think we're quite to that level here. We do have at least the proper steering wheel and pedals, but there's a huge difference in feel that you get from the equipment that these drivers will be using.
Yeah, I think most of them already had a simulator at home, or now organizing a proper simulator, because I think most of them will also stay with sim racing, and not everybody, but most of them will stay with it. While we see here a nice fight of Nick Tandy in front with Max von Splunteren, it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tandy looking to try and get to third position. Jackson Evans had easy pickings past Lawrence Vanthoor a few moments ago through the complex, and he's now up to sixth position. But Tandy wants a podium here. He's been unlucky the last couple of weeks when it comes to these televised races. I'm sure he's had much more success on some of us. So I actually noticed he's been doing a lot of oval racing recently on iRacing. So he's been on the super speedways as well as the short ovals. And of course, Tandy came from a short oval background before he was a Porsche driver, and actually has done a very nice job of things there, just getting more momentum out of Kops and had the better drag. Van Splunteren kind of pinching a little bit on the exit and allowing Tandy to fly through. Look at this, Jan.
Yeah, I think it looked like Van Splunteren had a bad exit of the corner, because he was running too wide, slowing down the car not to get a penalty for that. And Tandy used his line, the perfect line, around the outside to get past, or to pass Van Splunteren.
Tandy up to third then. He's 4.3 seconds back from our leading battle, which is Larry ten Voorde and Ayhancan Guven. They shared the wins in Barcelona. They are equal on points, and they really are the class of the field when it comes to the virtual version of the Mobil 1 Supercup for 2020. To be fair, these two could quite easily be fighting at the head of the field once we get the real season underway. There'll be a couple of experienced racers at the tail of this field that will be joining them. Someone like Jaap van Lagen you would expect to be there. And of course, Michael Ammermuller, the previous champion from the past couple of years, who is not with us this afternoon. But ten Voorde, relatively new to the Porsche Supercup and the Carrera Cup as well. And Guven, of course, actually a double champion in the Carrera Cup. The very first, if memory serves me, he was the very first Carrera Cup champion of France to be non-French. He's actually Turkish. Every single year before that, it was always a Frenchman that had won the Carrera Cup France.
Yes, and he's also winner of Carrera Cup Benelux, and so he's very experienced. And what I like on him is he is really a hard fighter. So he's fighting until the very last second of a race, and you can also see it in his driving style. So cutting here, cutting there, and also going sideways here, sideways there. So maybe sometimes he's a little bit overstressing the car, but he's pushing very hard to fight for the win.
So we do think that Guven has a little bit of front right damage. We'll get a chance to see that in a moment, but that will be affecting the way that car feels, won't it, Jan? It will not necessarily run in exactly the same way that he would be hoping for.
No, not at all, but that makes it even more or even better for how he is following Larry Tenforde, because Tenforde has no damage on his car, and Guven is following him, let's say, without any problem. But with this damage at the front, he loses a lot of drag, and so it makes it much more difficult to drive the car.
And there we go. That's a very clear view of the damage that Guven is carrying this race. It was probably because he had such a poor start, dropping down into the clutches of the midfield as he ran to this part of the track. He had to be very aggressive at turn 3 and 4 to get himself back into the position that he started, and perhaps there was a bit of contact in the process of doing that, and therefore actually second position will be really, really good achievement if he finishes where he is right now. He's still got 12 minutes left of this race. 11 minutes and 50 seconds. You can see the Tag Heuer clock on the left-hand side of the screen. Further back then, Leon Köhler trying to find a way past Jackson Evans. So Köhler's actually passed Van Thor. We haven't seen that. Quite interesting to see that some of these laps that these drivers have done. We're at lap 6 now, and say, for instance, Larry Tenforde has not had an official registered lap because he's always run off the track at least once in that lap. Doesn't matter in the race as such, although we do have drivers driving advisors watching this race, and they will, if they feel that there's too much cutting, they will impose penalties. But as soon as the car goes off track, as we just saw there, all 4 wheels off, and iRacing believes that is an off track, it will not register the lap time at all.
Yeah, so that's why sometimes can have a little bit of struggle in the live timing. But here is a nice fight between Köhler again and Jackson Evans, but also here Sven Müller and Dylan Pereira. Müller, he's in the orange and white car. Pereira, he has to fight against the car of Klein, and they're really struggling because there must be some damage also on Pereira's car, because he is one of the very fast drivers also in iRacing, and now he's fighting here for 10th position. So probably we see in a different camera angle that there's something going on with his car.
That was the pass. That was a fantastic pass for 10th position. So as you say, Pereira's third in the championship, but just nowhere near where you would expect to see him in this race. 11th position, only a couple of points were picked up for that. And Klein was able to go all the way around the outside at Stowe. Now that looks like a very slow-moving Lawrence Van Thor. We're on replay. What happened to him coming into turn 3? Just lost the rear end. Didn't bite. He's had a spin. Does anyone go past him? At least one car goes past him. So, yeah, so Jaden Conwright into 7th spot. And Van Thor down to 8th position. So easy to do there at turn 3, because you're trying to trail brake into the turn. You're trying to get the car to rotate a little bit, but you don't want it to rotate that much.
Yeah, and once you're too early on throttle and maybe overheat the tires a little bit too much, and as we say, we have about over 30 degrees centigrade on a track temperature. So we only have 9 minutes to go in the race. So maybe overheating the tires a little bit in the rear, and then you can spin quite easily.
So Klein has lost the position again to Pereira. Pereira's managed to get past back into 10th. We were hearing that we think he had a slowdown, which is why he had to basically the software believed that he had taken advantage by cutting the track, and just, I think, exactly the same as what's happening there to Klein. Klein's having to back out of it. So there's actually a little part of Beckett's complex, which is if you get four wheels off track, giving you a slowdown penalty. And look at this, how he's suddenly being gobbled up by Conright. And it's again easy pickings because he just had to, he'll get a time basically to match a delta that he has to slow down by, and the software deciding how much that is depending on how much he cut. So down now outside the top 10, and Conright moves up into 7th position. Sorry, that isn't Conright, is it? That's Nacken, his teammate, up to 11th. We are 7.5 minutes away from the end of this race. Further forward, Köhler and Evans squabbling down the Wellington Straight. Köhler on the outside. Jackson Evans has the inside line, and again, classic Brooklands Luffield move. You just end up finding yourself always on the wrong bit of track to try and make the move.
Yeah, that's correct, but these guys are fighting from the beginning on, and it's a very nice fight because it's very fair, so they give space to each other, but they also fighting quite hard. Now Evans is missing the apex a little bit. Maybe that's the chance for Köhler, so he shows himself in the mirror of Evans, but here there's no way to go around, so he has to stick behind, and maybe he gets a better exit out of the next right-hander here onto Hanger Straight, and then with a slipstream, maybe he can get and afford to try to overtake Evans.
On board with Köhler. Down the Hanger Straight. Into Stowe. Braver later on the brake. Sometimes that punishes you on the exit though. Slow in, fast out. The very simple philosophies of racing. For some reason, I find in the virtual world, these kind of driving lessons, if you like, are compounded. They always seem so much more of an effect in the virtual world than in the real world. I think it's because in the real world you've got other senses going on as well, so you don't necessarily notice that if you are slow in, fast out, then the time comes. But also, of course, in a qualifying session, in iRacing, for instance, you have a sliding scale. You can constantly see if you've lost and gained time on the miniature sectors, like of course you probably can in the Supercup car as well. They will have that around the Formula 1 circuits with the mini sectors that Formula 1 use. So a good opportunity to see where you lose and gain on every single lap. Down the Wellington Straight then, this is the battle for 5th position, and Köhler, the rookie, would like to get into 5th and oppose Jackson Evans, who I think will find himself in a much healthier championship position by the end of this race if he can stay where he is. He's lost touch to Van Splinteren ahead. There's a gap of some 4 seconds between those two. Tandy in 3rd position, just a second separating our two leaders, but this is the closest battle on track right now. It's just trying to find the right place to make the clean move.
But at the moment, he makes everything right, Köhler, in the black and white car. He's waiting behind Evans. I mean, he's trying to get to find the overtake, but he's waiting, and maybe in the last couple of minutes, because we have 4.5 minutes to go, so at least 2 more laps to go, maybe he can do an afford on him in the next 2 laps.
One of the tricky things about the Silverstone circuit is there isn't huge braking zones. So many of these corners are long and sweeping, and so not the opportunity to slam on the brakes and just be that last of the late breakers down the inside. Only a couple of real opportunities. That's one of the reasons why they built that new loop section to add a couple of overtaking zones, which worked fantastically well, and turn 3 is really the best place now to overtake, as well as going down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands. Here's the lead battle. It's got a little closer. Guven, I think, has been preserving his tyres well. He's managed to take that gap down 3 or 4 tenths of a second in the last lap, even carrying that damage on the right front. Guven is the faster man. Look at his laps. 2 tenths on lap 8, a tenth on lap 9, and then 2 tenths on lap 10, chopping down the lead, but how much is Ten Voorde managing his pace?
We saw exactly the same in the last 2 rounds of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, the Virtual Edition at Barcelona, when these guys were also saving tires, and now we see exactly the same, and we have 3 minutes and 15 seconds to go, and I think we will have a battle in the last lap here again, as we had it in Barcelona as well.
So many of these virtual races are so entertaining, so true to real life as well. It's just fantastic to see, and it's fantastic for me to get my racing juices flowing and on a Saturday afternoon be able to call some fantastic motorsport action. In fact, some of these races are way better than we ever get to see in real world. A race for the lead, 5 seconds separating our top 2 after 10 laps. I reckon we're around the last sector of the lap here. Might still get 2 laps in here. 2 minutes and 25 seconds remaining, and they're not going to split the beam before the 2-minute mark. So they are going to split the beam before the 2-minute mark, as Ten Voorde goes very, very wide. It's going to be close, but yeah, I think we've got 2 more laps to go, so plenty more opportunities for these positions to swap, and also for the battle for 5th position as well between Köhler and Evans. I can tell you that a few moments ago, no change of position there either. Half a second separating Ten Voorde and Guven. There is a battle for 5th. Tandy and Van Splinteren in between these 2 battles. Much better survival rate this race than we saw in Barcelona. We saw only about 15 cars finish in Barcelona, but we're down to about 24 cars that have yet to visit the pit lane for damage that they couldn't continue with. I'm sure some of the guys at the tail of the field are running with damage. We know, for instance, Simona de Silvestra's damage and was running with Jaap van Lagen. She's now 7th position. But it's impressive to see the progress that these guys have made.
Yes, absolutely. And we can see that also. We not only have the fight in the front with the 2 runners at Guven and Ten Voorde, also like here Köhler and Jackson Evans, and also in the back of the field, the guys are fighting. I mean, they learned quite a lot in the beginning of the first 2 rounds of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, and now as you say, you can see it already in the next race here. So yeah, I mean, it's a learning process, and we will see nice fights for the upcoming races as well.
So close. Perhaps this is the opportunity into Stowe this time by for Köhler on Evans. What is that? A wheel length between the 2 of them? It's certainly not car length. And the big braking zone into the final couple of corners here at Silverstone. A great opportunity to throw it down the inside and disturb your competitor, but for the moment Köhler decides against it. He's got a good run though through there, and he's really got the power down out through the final turn. No braking there. Let the car run to the outside. Last lap it is. He flashes his lights to say, look, I'm going to try and come through when we get to the next big braking zone. This is turn 1. It's a big, long drag. Turn 2 isn't really a turn. Well, it is, but you don't do any time of braking, and Evans sits in the middle of the road to defend from Köhler. He's going to have to do the same thing into the left-hand hairpin as well. And Evans survives another day, but the next thing will be the big stop at Brooklands. That's the next opportunity for Köhler. And Köhler has perhaps a better exit onto the Wellington Straight. Looks to the inside again. Can't find a way through. And again, if you're on the inside there, then you're on the outside for Luffield. So it doesn't necessarily always work for him, but he is crawling all over the exhaust pipe of Jackson Evans. And you just get the feeling that something's got to give here before the end of the race.
That was a clever move from Evans because he slowed down a little bit more in the apex of Luffield, and so Köhler also had to slow down a little more, and he lost the power out of the exit. Now there's no way here at this part of the track. Also Köhler there struggling with the rear, so he had to counter steer with the oversteering 911 Cup car, and we are here now back with the battle in the front.
So here is our leading battle then.
But I think Larry Tenforde, with the experience he has, he will stay in front for the last
two. Great job, Tenforde. Oh, it's contact between the two of them. Tenvorde's been spun around. He was a bit slow into the complex, and it's given Ayhancan Guven the race victory. But I think the race stewards will be looking at that. Contact between our leading contenders. It was so good. It was so clean up until that point. And Tengu, look at that, side by side. Did he just try and slow him down too much?
He went for the gap. So he went for the gap, but there was not really a gap. Let's see in another replay from above. So here Tenforde is in the front. He lost a little bit of speed here. So Guven went for the gap, and Tenforde turned in. I mean, he was with about half of the car. Guven was with half of the car next to Larry Tenforde. But I think stewards will have a look on that for sure.
Absolutely. So the results are certainly provisional for race 1 here at Silverstone after contact at the final turns between our two leaders. There's still plenty of battling going on. Such was the gap that we had. We'll get the confirmation of the results in a few moments' time. An opportunity to check in with some of the guys further back. Stephen Grove being passed there by Clement Mathieu. Mathieu going up into 20th position, one of our Pro-Am drivers. And he's got a couple more corners to complete. I can tell you Jaap van Lagen is just about to finish the race. Oh, and that's a bit of a shame. Was that Mark Sinney, actually? No, I think it was Mark Sinney he's passed. Stephen Grove a bit further up the road, racing for Team Australia. And Mathieu is coming round the final turn now, and he will pick up 20th position until we then see lots of penalties. 2014 is Matteo Lorena. We saw him involved in an accident at the start of the race. Didn't actually go into pit lane, though, to sort his car out. So he's been carrying damage throughout the whole of this race as well. And he's just got a couple more corners. And I think he will be the last of the runners. The rest of them, actually, the rest of the runners are out there, but one lap down. So they were drivers that had to go to pits for repairs, the likes of Fabian Wohlven, Christian Engelhardt, Richard Leitz. And let's now have a look at the results provisionally of race 1 here at Silverstone. Ayhancan Guven takes the victory ahead of Larry Tenvoorde. Nick Tandy in 3rd position, with Max van Splunteren in 4th, and Jackson Evans holding on to 5th in the end ahead of Leon Köhler. Jaden Conright 7th, Lawrence Van Thor an impressive 8th. Dylan Pereira will be disappointed, 27 seconds back in 9th position, with Sven Muller in 10th. And rounding out the top 15 point scorers, Marius Nakin, Marvin Klein, Patrick Pile in 13th, Joey Mawson only 14th for Fat Autotech, and then Julian Andelauer in 15th spot. Those guys that did not score and were over a minute down: Pontus Fredriksson, Simona Di Silvestro, Jaap van Lagen, Stephen Grove and Clement Mathieu. With Matteo Lorena, the last of the guys on the lead lap. Mark Sinney, Roar Lindland, Philip Sager, Fabian Wohlvend, Christian Engelhardt, Jean-Baptiste Simonauer, Jesse Van Goyke and Jordan Love, Richard Leitz, all getting caught up in accidents at the start of the race. And sadly, Leitz didn't even get back out onto circuit. A fantastic race 1 here from Silverstone, but we've got the second race coming up in a few moments' time. Welcome back to the virtual version of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, or round 4, coming up in a few moments' time. Whilst we wait for round 4, we've got a little warm-up session that is happening out on track. Some guys able to get a couple more laps in, or they'll just take a rest and go and get a drink, because it's intense racing in the virtual world. Somehow, Jan Seifert, it's almost more intense racing in the virtual world than it is in the real world.
Yeah, it is. Physically, it is not really, because you're sitting still in your simulator at home or wherever. But it is mentally, for sure. And so that's why, you're sweating a lot, and the heat is in your room, and you really feel it. And to keep the concentration up, I think that is also so much exhausting. And as you say, you really have to drink quite a lot. Even it's just 25 minutes race. You really feel the exhausting after these races.
What I found the other day, and I'm relatively new to actually competing in sim racing, my rig is in quite a small room, and with the computer and then the steering wheel, both with fans pumping out a lot of heat, the rooms get as hot as inside a race car.
Yes, it really is. The smaller room you have, the hotter it is. But that's what I'm saying. It's mentally first why you're exhausting, but it's also the heat of all the hardware you have. It's the monitor who's also heating. It's the PC, the pedals, it's the steering wheel, everything. And so that's what it makes so exhausting.
Our executive producer here on the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup coverage, saying no drinks bottles, no pipe into the mouth like you would have in a usual race car. You do have to take your hand off the wheel and grab a glass. But do you know what? If I was doing a long stint, like a 2-3 hour race, I think I would have a plumbing system directly into my mouth rather than having to take my hand off a wheel, because especially if you set these wheels up strong, they can be quite hard to steer with one arm.
Fun fact is, I did the 12 hours of Sebring a couple of years ago in my simulator here back at home, and I did exactly that. I had a little stroller in my bottle, and so I was drinking while driving, because otherwise it's not possible. Even though when you do like double stints for the endurance races, so it's you really have to figure something out. But there are things you do for that.
I also got cramp in my shoulders after my 25-minute race around Brands Indy for some reason. I think I have to turn down my force feedback, because it's, again, one of those things that maybe in a real car you can't kind of change, but in the virtual world, if you want to have more or less force feedback from the wheel, then you can switch it up and switch it down. Yes,
and it's a personal setting for everybody. One needs it more soft. The other one needs it a little bit stronger to feel the car. So and that's what is sim racing about. You can adjust everything for your needs, because in the real racing you're limited also by the facts you have. The car itself you cannot change. So you can change the setting and everything, but the car itself it is what it is. And here, as you say, you can change the steering, the pedals, the brake pedal, the throttle, and so on, and you can change quite everything.
I think we lost Jan there for a second. Seems to have disappeared. We have our warm-up before the start of race 2 for the second round of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup Virtual Edition. We do have 4 rounds in total, I think. And after this, we'll be going to Monza. We were in Barcelona for the first round, and I have not got my notes to remind myself of what the other round is. Of course it's Spa-Francorchamps. How could I forget that? I've got Spa-Francorchamps in my office. If you saw my tweet the other day, you'll see that Spa-Francorchamps sits proudly above my commentary desk as one of my favourite circuits in the world. So I feel bad that I've just forgot Spa-Francorchamps. Naughty me. What's your favourite track in the world, Jan Seifert?
I mean, there are different tracks. Ones you like because of success, ones you like because of the track layout. So, for example, I really like Barcelona track. We have been the last 2 rounds because I won my first Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup race there. So I like the track because of that. But also, I mean, one of my very favorite tracks is Spa and for sure Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Yeah, it's the emotional thing. I can't say that I've ever had any success at any racetrack in the real world. Although, to be fair, I did win a smart car race once around Brands Indy in November. So I've got a little bit of real world experienced racing, and that's why Brands Hatch sits above my office as one of my favourite tracks in the world. But certainly for me, Spa-Francorchamps is an amazing circuit, but also visiting it as a child and being there to watch Formula One races in the early 90s was the reason probably why it's sort of emotionally stitched into my heart as one of my favourites. Silverstone, I don't know why, but whilst it is a fantastic circuit to drive and I know it particularly well, there's something about it that just doesn't pull the heartstrings like a Spa-Francorchamps does.
I mean, I think it's because I always like categorize the tracks into like the natural tracks. It's like Spa, it's like Zandvoort, or these kind of tracks.
Oh, Zandvoort, that's a good shout.
Yeah, you have the nature and you put a track into it. And there are other tracks like Silverstone a bit. Silverstone is an old airfield, and you put a track on like a flattened surface, let's say. And so I don't really like that. Also, all the modern tracks, they are like exactly like this, and so I like the nature tracks quite more, so that's why I love Zandvoort as well.
Join the conversation with us on Twitter with the hashtag #VirtualPMSC. That is how various people are feeding back the entertainment and the excitement of what we've seen so far, including very well done to whoever's looking after Team JTR's Twitter handle, using all the right hashtags and celebrating Nick Tandy's 3rd position. For the first time in a while, Nick have actually finished a sim race happy getting a 3rd spot, because he's had the pace over the last couple of weeks in various different races, but never seems to have managed to complete a race without chaos. This one, he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, he will be lucky, or he will be happy about it. I mean, I think now he's even more focused on the next round, on the next race number 4 here for the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup. And but I'm also really much looking forward for the other guys and drivers, and also our 2 women in the field, because Simona de Silvestro, she's always also fast, but unlucky. So I'm really much looking forward to their performance in the next race.
Next race coming up in about 12 minutes time, I think. We're in the middle of warm-up for the second race and just waiting for various broadcast partners to go on breaks and come back to us to remind you then of the rest of the season, Barcelona and Silverstone right now, and now then actually it's next weekend we go to Spa for rounds 5 and 6, and then a bit of a break to the middle of May. The final round will be at Monza, a slipstreamer. How exciting will that be in these Super Cup cars to round off this 4-round season? And then hopefully these guys can start focusing back on the real world exploits. Who knows when we might start, what the calendar might look like. Certainly Formula One don't seem to know yet, but hopefully Silverstone will be part of it. It's going to be tricky to get racing going again, but when we do, I think we're going to be more excited than ever to witness cars going round and round in circles.
But if there's anybody missing the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, I mean, at the 2nd of May, the Tag Heuer Esports Supercup is starting, and so I think then it's a good change and another opportunity to watch the one make series of the Porsche with the professional sim racing drivers also competing in the 911.
And one of the most remarkable stories from that this year, last year that was the first year of that particular competition, which effectively used to be the World Championship for iRacing and got kind of sponsored effectively by Porsche and became the Porsche Esports Supercup. And now we brought Tag Heuer in as a sponsor. Then Max Verstappen is qualified to take part in that. So yes, we do have the very creme de la creme of the esports world, but Verstappen will be with them too as well.
So this guy, he's doing so much sim racing, and I really like what he's doing. So yeah, I'm really much looking forward to see him driving in the Supercup.
Getting close then to kicking off the second of our races here at Silverstone. It effectively marks the midpoint of the season, would you believe it, with round 4 of 8. And let's see who will triumph. We won't know regarding the outcome of that collision. We won't know what's happened until post-race. So keep on in touch with the various social medias and go on to the Supercup website for the official results once that incident has been looked at by the driving standards advisors to actually check to make sure. I don't think we're going to be able to give you the official results in this program, so you will need to go and check. But we're getting there. We're going to get these cars back into grid formation. Remember, the grid will be formed by the results of round 3 of the championship, and we'll go back underway again for race 4. Round 4 of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup, the virtual edition, is going to take place in a few moments' time at the Silverstone circuit. The grid formed by the results of our first race. Not too many retirements, but there will be a couple of drivers out of place at the tail of the field. A quick look at how Silverstone looks. The track temperature a little less than we saw earlier on. It was 31 degrees when we first came here. It's now down to 27 degrees, 22 degrees air temperature. So that's 72 Fahrenheit if you're on that system. Nice clear conditions. The track will have developed a little bit though, because like a real track does, as you have more and more cars going around it, more and more rubber is laid, more and more marbles are created on the outside and the wrong part of the track, making it a little bit harder to run off track.
Yeah, and we see...
My name is Ben Kostenjuris, and alongside me, Jan, is Jan Seifert. He'll be analysing all the action and looking forward to another duel between Ten Voorde and Guven.
Yes, and we will see another nice race here while the cars are on track for that little warm-up you already mentioned before. And they are just waiting for the so-called gridding and going into the starting grid. And then we go for another 25 minutes of the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup.
That was a great view, that helicopter view of the circuit, showing the forest on the outside of what used to be Turn 1, which is Copse, and it's called Copse because of the forest. And nice to see that iRacing have even modelled that, even if probably on track you would never actually see the Copse on the outside of the old Turn 1. So many legendary names. Abbey, there's an old Abbey. Stowe, after Stowe School. You can actually walk out of the grounds of Stowe School, and you used to be able to walk straight into Silverstone back in the day. Various people like Eddie Jordan, who went to Stowe School back in the day, was coming over the fields and into the racetrack to get his fix back in, that must have been about the 1920s for Eddie Jordan. I'm joking, Eddie Jordan won't be watching, but it's a joke. So hearing, Jan, that the results are final.
Yes, so Oliver Schwab, so the manager of the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup, so he's following the broadcast as well, and he just told me that the results are final, and the only thing what can happen to Ayrton Guven is to get penalty points. So for the next races, so all the results are not provisional, they are final, and so now it's up to the stewards to check the incidents and then to maybe give the drivers penalty points.
So Guven then takes the lead of the championship because those two came into this equal on points. So right now, Guven is ahead of Ten Voorde in the lead of the championship. Not entirely sure mathematically I can work out who's now third, because Dylan Pereira was third, but only picked up points for 9th position after that race, and will be hoping to improve from that 9th in this one. He'll start, of course, the race in 9th spot, so that is inside of row 5 with Sven Muller alongside him. But he's got a few guys ahead of him that I'd expect him to be faster than. So let's watch out for that BWT Lechner Racing pink machine progressing through the field. Good to see a good spread of teams and sponsors as well in the top 10. But GP Elite will be hoping to get a better... Well, that's still a pretty good result with Ten Voorde and Splunteren, but they'll be hoping that Jesse Van Kuijken can get himself a bit further up through the field after being caught up in the accident that we saw in race 1. Van Kuijken, by the way, is third fastest in this warm-up session. Not everybody taking part, and certainly not everybody putting in fast lap times, but anyone who's trying to find that extra couple of tenths of a second will be using the warm-up session that's happening now to absolutely perfect their lap times and then their consistency for the 25-minute race. Only about 12 laps in the end, because the lap is so long here at Silverstone, but a great entertainment for round 3, and we're coming up with round 4 in just a few moments' time. Warm-up is now over, and the race and the grid will be set with Ayhan Guven on the pole and Larry Ten Voorde alongside him. Fireworks in race 1. They haven't had a chance to retaliate, so will we see that retaliation in the first few corners of race 2? Here's the starting grid then. Guven, Ten Voorde, Tandy and Van Splunteren. The result of race 1. Jackson Evans and Leon Köhler will renew their battle on row 3. Then Conright and Van Thor. Pereira, Muller, Nacken and Klein. And then Patrick Pilet in 13th. Joey Mawson will look to progress from 14th. Anderleya, Fredriksson. These are all people who finished relatively unscathed, similar to Silvestro 17th, Van Lagen 18th, Grove 19th, and Mathieu 20th, with Sini down in 22nd alongside Lorena. Lindland and Sager was a pit visitor in race 1, down in 24th position. The rest behind were all pit visitors as well, including Richard Leete, Jordan Grove, and Van Kuijken. Expect them to progress a lot. Sadly, we do not have Yuka Honkavori with internet problems once more. And we're racing here at Silverstone. It's a very bad start from Nick Tandy, who's being gobbled up. Jackson Evans had to take evasive action. Guven is the man who has made the best start and leads through turn 1. I think Van Thor exiting stage right there through turn 1, so we may have lost Van Thor with a bit of contact. It's Sven Muller, apparently, who's off on the grass. There he is. Oh, so he had a great start. Sven Muller now recovering. Another car further back, and we've got chaos. There is Van Thor, so it was a little bit premature to announce Van Thor spinning, but he eventually did. Oh, we've got cars ahead of him upside down as well. So lots and lots of chaos. That is Clement Mathieu, who obviously made a good start, but now spinning around on his roof. At the head of the field, Ten Voorde is Ten Voorde leading now? No, he's not. He's still got Guven leading with Ten Voorde in 2nd position. Then Van Splunteren in 3rd.
We have exactly the same situation we had at Barcelona at the 1st and 2nd round. So the opposite positioning of these two, Guven and Larry Ten Voorde, but also Van Splunteren, and so his teammate is quite close to these two. And then Leon Köhler, he's in 4th position.
Yeah, so where's Nick Tandy? What a dreadful start from Nick Tandy. Down in position now. He's in a good little fight, though. He's got Dylan Pereira ahead of him, so I told you Pereira was going to make a good start. 7th position for Pereira. 6th for Jaden Conright. That's the heady heights for Conright. He's never been that high. And side by side at the head of the field for the lead of the race. No change there, though. Guven trying to stay ahead, having to go very defensive though into the final 2 turns, puts Ten Voorde on the outside, and Ten Voorde decides to bail from trying to keep that inside line. Spinner from Jackson Evans. Evans has spun around 3 wide, a bit further ahead, with Tandy trying to take advantage of people backing out of it. So Conright is going to lose a position. And Joey Mawson's up there. Joey Mawson's made a fantastic start. So it's Tandy, Conright there as we go into a replay of exactly what happened. And Dylan Pereira. So what happened to Dylan Pereira? So Tandy, third car. Pereira dives down the inside of Conright. There's Jackson Evans spinning. And Pereira, Pereira stays ahead. And Mawson trying to take advantage of that as Nick Tandy goes all the way around the outside. Oh, Jackson Evans will be kicking himself, one of the fastest men around Silverstone. And now he's down in 12th spot.
But also behind Joey Mawson, we see here in the number 7 car in 8th position, it's Patrick Pili. So he's in 9th position right behind him. And his first attempt here in the virtual edition of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup. And he's really good. He's doing really well. And so he's fighting in top 10. But back to the front of the grid.
Ten Voorde wants to get at the head of the field. He wants to lead this one, be the pace setter. He was in race 1 throughout the whole of that race. Was never challenged until right at the end by Guven, and this time Guven ahead of Ten Voorde. Voorde does look like the faster driver in these early laps, but I did feel like Guven was trying to save a little bit of tyres in race 1. Look at the slipstream effect, how Ten Voorde draws up to the back end of Guven. He's very close under braking. Almost looked as though Ten Voorde was going to go into the back end of Guven there. Such was his late braking attempt, and again Guven goes super defensive into the final complex of turns, and this is backing them up into Max van Splunteren. Switch back. Ten Voorde with the overlap going through the final turn. There's no contact, but he just about holds on, and he gets a slide on as well, so he's still going to go side by side through turn 1. This is not advisable at all. Guven hanging it out round the outside and holds on to the position. That was brave stuff from Larry Ten Voorde.
And you see from the 2, it's now a pack of four cars fighting now. So it's Guven, it's Larry Ten Voorde, his teammate Max van Splunteren, and then Leon Köhler in 4th position.
Yeah, great stuff from Leon Köhler, the rookie, into 4th spot then. He's had a really good start, but Guven is just on the defensive. He just doesn't have the pace in these early laps, and Ten Voorde is really trying to disrupt his rhythm. Every single corner, Ten Voorde is moving around, trying to kind of find himself in a blind spot, so Guven is unsure of where he is. What he doesn't want, of course, is contact and putting these 2 cars out of the race. These 2 are clearly the fastest 2 in the championship so far, have dominated all 3 races so far, but by doing this kind of disruption, it's keeping Köhler and Splunteren in the mix of things. Then Dylan Pereira in 5th, Nick Tandy 6th, Jaden Conright 7th. And again moving around, even going into a place where you would not overtake. Larry Ten Voorde is causing issues.
But what we see is exactly the same like in the last couple of races. So Guven is always struggling a little bit in the beginning of the race.
And that was Van Splunteren off on a very strange place to go off after Beckett's, but Van Splunteren putting it into reverse, getting himself out. Let's have a look at what happened then. Was there contact from Köhler behind? Oh, he just ran a bit too hard over the curbs, got a swapper on, got into the grass, and eventually got helped out of it by Leon Köhler, but he was halfway through the accident already.
Yeah, so to be honest, I mean that was an unlucky one from Köhler, because he couldn't avoid to have contact with Max van Splunteren. So he slowed down on the grass, and then he just kicked him in the back. So it was a bit of unlucky, but not on purpose.
Well, that's one less car for Larry Ten Voorde to worry about, although of course that was his teammate, so he would hope that his teammate wasn't going to be throwing him too many things down the inside of him. And still, Ten Voorde looks the faster, doesn't he? Guven just does not seem to have the pace right now. Tandy does the fastest lap.
That's what I started to say before Van Splunderen had this crash. So Guven was always in all the races in the beginning struggling quite a bit with his performance, but in the end he was much faster. And it was the opposite with Larry Tenforde in the number 25 car here. So he was always on good performance in the beginning and he was struggling in the end. So that's why we have this kind of fight.
Team JTR tweeting that Nick Tandy had a dreadful start. Thanks, boss. Thanks, social media man, for criticising me as the boss is getting his head down and getting the fastest lap of the race. A 2:03.981 puts him onto the tail now of Dylan Pereira. There is Nick in the Mobil 1 colours. Guest driver, of course. Not taking part officially in the Supercup as a works driver. But for the moment, hasn't got the pace to get onto the tail of Dylan Pereira. Still, the two at the front are absolutely nose to tail, and they are the closest battle. Just behind Nick Tandy is Jaden Conwright and Joey Mawson. And so Mawson trying to find a way past Conwright. Mawson having a dreadful race 1, 14th position, presumably driving with damage. But again, like we saw in Barcelona, his second race going a lot better. Patrick Pilet just behind, able to have a good watch of the guys in front of him, and then it's Jackson Evans in 9th position, Lawrence Van Thor in 10th, so a good recovery from Van Thor, who we did see having a spin, but quite a few guys getting caught up at the start of the race. Richard Leitz, sadly, again getting caught up in an accident. Andalea getting caught up, Maris Nakin, Sven Muller, Simona de Silvestro unfortunately retired, and Clement Mathieu with Jaap van Lagen at the tail of the field, 53 seconds back. I tell you what, these guys might catch Jaap van Lagen. I'm not sure Van Lagen has been lapped very often in the real world, but he may get lapped here at Silverstone today in the virtual world, which will be a thing to tick off his strange bingo list of things he didn't want to do in the virtual world. Once again, just 0.2 of a second separating our top two drivers. Tenvoorde using the track, letting the car run, trying to extract as much speed as possible. A little tap there.
But that's how it is. You just knock a little bit on the door, say, hey, here I am. I am faster than you. But because, I mean, we have 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes to go. But here now on the hanger straight into Stowe, Larry Tenforde is trying to get a better exit now, but early on throttle to maybe have this chance to overtake for the chicane.
Guven's driving this race like it's the last lap, every single lap. The defence is just so insane. He obviously feels as though if Tenvoorde gets past, then he won't be able to catch. So Guven defending as though this is the last lap. Surely he can't do this for the next 15 minutes.
No, not at all, because he's overstressing his tires as well. And Tenvoorde is just having a look, and he just has to wait for a gap to open and then go through. So Guven is really defending quite hard. And yeah, you see here also on the inside line, and now he has a better exit because he's clever enough to slow down a little bit more in the apex to get a better exit to Tenvoorde, but he cannot do it for another 14 minutes.
As you say, slow in, fast out, let the car settle, allow the car to pick up as much grip as possible, and then plant the throttle. And it doesn't matter. He's allowed to do this. He's allowed to put his car wherever he wants to do it, as long as it's fair, as long as he's not forcing another car off track. If he decides as the leader to slow down a bit more than usual, he's absolutely entitled to do that. Of course, put himself at risk of being rear-ended, of course, but for the moment, nice and clean between the two of them. And they are still allowing Leon Köhler to get back into touch. At the moment, Köhler's about 2.5 seconds back, with Dylan Pereira now in 4th position. But the more they battle, the more they slow each other up, the more they will allow Köhler to catch back up, and Pereira. Ooh, I feel like Guven was a bit wide coming out of Maggots and Beckett's further back. Raw Lindland, haven't seen too much of Raw Lindland, but he's had a little accident there with Matteo Lorena.
Yeah, it's a clear.
Again, that's kind of perception, isn't it? He just doesn't know where he is, where the other car is.
Yes, he just turned in and he didn't expect the car to be next to him. So there's no offense against him because he just didn't see it.
Fastest lap of the race to Guven. Last time through, they're going to go and do another lap now. So actually they are running, when Guven stays on track and doesn't start doing some silly defensive moves, he is very fast. He's the fastest man out there. But as soon as he puts himself off the racing line to defend from Larry ten Voorde, then he's slowing himself down so much. Here's Dylan Pereira, a 9th position in race 1, 2 third positions in Barcelona, and fires it down the inside late on the brakes to Köhler. Köhler stays around the outside to give him the inside line for the hairpin, but all of this is compromising his speed down the Wellington straight. So now through this kink, it's basically a flat out kink, I expect Köhler to be providing a big slipstream to Dylan Pereira. Pereira's going to look to the inside here at Brooklands. Decides against it though, and sensible, because I find that you really have to have a decisive move down into Brooklands to make that pass stick. If you do go side by side, you just find yourself on the outside at Luffield.
Yeah, correct. So you really have to go for it. You cannot just try and let see what happens. So you really have to go for it. And I think Köhler is doing quite clever, because he left the space in the first part of the track, and now he's defending without driving too much on the inside of the corners. So I think he's doing a good job, but I'm not sure if he can do it for the last minutes in the race, because Dylan Pereira, he's one of the fastest guys out there as well.
Just a quick look then at the top 8 positions. ten Voorde, Köhler, Pereira, Nick Tandy there in shot. Then the battle between Conright, Mawson and Pilet as Pereira looks to the inside. Ooh, he looks to the inside, has put off Köhler, and that's an easy move eventually for Dylan Pereira. I think Köhler was just a bit too friendly almost there, allowing him to have some racing room, but putting himself completely off track in the process.
I think also the pressure from Pereira was a bit too much for Köhler, because he was a little bit too late on the brakes for Stowe, so Köhler was too late, and so he ran wide, and you were telling us about the marbles beside the racing line, and so he was on the dirty line, and then he just moved a little bit wide, and then so he has had no chance to defend.
A recovering Jackson Evans goes down the inside of Patrick A and moves himself up into 8th position. Ahead of him, Jerry Mawson and Jaden Conright fighting side by side. Conright in the black, green and white machine has the inside line, and again the inside line. But now we go onto the Wellington straight, and Mawson will have a good slipstream again. He's going to look to the inside line at Brooklands. He's going to have to make this move properly stick. Now, is this the right way to pass at Brooklands? Yes, it is. He has enough of an overlap. He holds Conright to the outside line and makes the move completely sorted. And Jackson Evans trying to go around the outside at Luffield. That's not a move that normally works, and it doesn't for the New Zealander. But he still has an overlap as he comes across the old start and finishing line and towards Copse, which again, not really a place where you want to go side by side. And there's contact. Oh, the two of them are off. Jaden Conright spins right in front of Patrick Pilet. Pilet is lucky to avoid them, and I think Evans managed to survive that in the grass.
Let's see. So that was a nice move, but now they just didn't see each other again, maybe, because they on the straight line. One was driving to the left, the other one was driving to the right, and they crashed into each other.
It's been side by side again for the lead of the race. Larry ten Voorde again trying to find an overlap. He was on the wrong line into Stowe, and he kind of is in the wrong line going into the final couple of corners as well, always putting himself on the outside line, getting the overlap, but Guven is driving such a defensive line. Larry ten Voorde can't find the right place to make the move stick.
And with more laps on the clock, it is more and more difficult for Larry Tenforde to pass Guven, because Guven knows now exactly what Tenforde tries to do for the overtake. So he learns from his moves, and that's why it is much more difficult now for Tenforde to pass.
In the slipstream, down the Wellington Straight, into the old area of the paddock. Brooklands, the left-hander. Strange corner, strange late apex. Always the wrong kind of line into Luffield because of Brooklands. Impatient. It's kind of off camber as you exit Luffield. The circuit kind of tries to pull you off the track. And then over the old start and finishing line. Still used quite a lot as a national circuit. Still used by the British touring cars. The old pits and paddock. Actually, I think the new pits and paddock only used by Formula One and MotoGP. But still, everybody else chooses the old style pit lane and start and finish line here at Silverstone. Tenforde just looks so threatening. Every single time we watch him, you're just expecting a move to happen. But so far, he hasn't managed to get himself to the head of the field. And he's been doing this cleanly. He could easily have binned him so many times, but he's doing it cleanly. The fight is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what we want to see here at the Porsche Mobil 1 Supercup. So it's exactly the same what we can expect from them once we start with a real Supercup on the tracks. So that's what will happen also between them.
Into the slipstream again. Less than a car's length between the two of them. Just 1.5 tenths of a second between the two of them. 6 minutes and 10 seconds remaining on the clock. Still so many questions. Dylan Pereira has a lot of attention in third position, but with Curler and Nick Tandy as well. So that's a good battle, as well as our leading battle. Not really sure where to look. There is Nick Tandy. A dreadful start, but he's getting himself back into the position where we could see him on the podium for a second time. You'd expect it. This is his home circuit.
Yes, but also Leon Köhler in the middle between Pereira and Tandy. He's there's the battle for the lead.
Guven again. Defending. Oh, surely Tenforde can't go around the outside of Luffield. Oh, he does have the overlap and gets forced onto the gravel there. He'll be upset by that because he was trying really fair racing. And he did have the overlap. He'll know he had the overlap because iRacing has a virtual spotter telling him, unless they've turned that off. And really, a rather overly ambitious move to try to go around the outside, but he was able to keep the overlap at the very least.
This is not the end of this fight, so for sure now Tenforde Tenforde will also be more aggressive now, as he saw Guven to be more aggressive, and so I think so now he tries to get his move done for the lead.
So intense, this battle for the lead of the race. Guven sits in the middle of the road. I don't think he's ever gone into that corner correctly throughout the whole of this race. Such has been his defensive line. Just keeping a half an eye on what's happening a bit further back as well, making sure we're not missing any moves in the top five, because there's so much going on as we jump back on board with Larry Tenforde. Look how fast this first corner is. Making sure you hook up the apex. He's had a really good run of things there. Much better than Guven. Guven is on the inside line and defending, hard defending, to make sure Tenforde can't get past. It's so intense driving the way that Guven has been driving throughout the whole of this race. We said 15 minutes ago that he could not keep this up, and he has kept it up completely, driving defensively. Again, he should be on the right-hand side here. He's on the left-hand side. He's hugging the inside line going into Brooklands.
And now he's clever enough to slow down himself much more than he should, and to keep Tenforde behind him. And Tenforde has no chance to rather than stay behind. But also here, this fine. Köhler in the middle of the pack of Pereira in front in the BWT car, and also in his back he has Nick Tandy, and these guys fighting for the last spot on the podium.
Yeah, Tandy's got a great view of this, just to kind of feel like Tandy's sitting there watching, seeing how this will play out. Pereira would love to get himself another third position. That would be his third podium of the season after 2 third spots in Barcelona. The anomaly really being this first race here at Silverstone, a 9th position for him, and flying the flag furiously for BWT. Oh, hearing that Tandy had a slowdown penalty, so he's going to drop off the back of that battle. And indeed he does. He drops 2.3 seconds. It was pretty heavy slowdown penalty. And he's actually dropped into the clutches. No, sorry, he hasn't dropped into the clutches of Jackson Evans behind. And still 2.3 seconds separating them as well. Evans and Mawson are fighting over 6th position, and Conright and Patrick Pilet are having a great battle for 8th. So actually wherever you look there's battles. We look at the front of the field, can't really take our eyes off these two as it's so close. As a TV director you have to stick on it because you never know when Larry Tenvoorde might actually make this move finally stick.
And
He's running out of time though.
To be honest, it feels like to be more intense race by race. So it's really close, so close to each other that you can't even see a gap between these cars. And now again, Guven will go to the left-hand side. You see here, it's the wrong side, as you say. But now there's the move.
Oh, late on the brakes and scares Guven offline. Now they do the switchback, but of course Tenvoorde has the inside line. Wow, Guven manages to claim the track. And that was very, as you say, Guven's so aggressive with the way he drives, and Tenvoorde just had to get out of it. I thought he had the inside line to Luffield, but he didn't. So we look again.
So now he left his space. He was fair enough, but now he knew that Tenvoorde was too fast. But now look, he just moved to the right-hand side, giving Tenvoorde no space at all.
That's the first time they have officially swapped places in the whole of this race. Tenvoorde for a couple of seconds was the leader. Oh, and we've got a little bit of traffic there, I saw, just flashing into the picture. So that'll be Jaap van Lagen, or Clement Mathieu, sorry, who's come out of the pits, having had a replacement. So that could play into things as well. It did in Barcelona, if I remember correctly. We had a bit of traffic causing problems. Defending. Guven on the inside into Stowe. At least now they don't have to worry about third position because Dylan Pereira's still got Leon Köhler to play with. And so they are just the two of them fighting. Again, should be on the right-hand side coming into this corner, but Guven is far left trying to keep Larry Tenvoorde at bay. Look at the clock. Are we going to get one more lap in? I think we might get one more lap in here. Yes, we do. Clement Mathieu's car looks appalling.
Last lap to go. So with 2 seconds to go, they crossed the line, and now they stuck in traffic probably.
Mathieu just been caught at the wrong place there, but does get out of the way when it really matters into the braking zone. Tenvoorde has a sniff into the hairpin. Oh, he unsettles his car, but at the same time Guven goes wide, so they both kind of compromise each other. What about the favourite overtaking spot coming down here into Brooklands? Guven will go. Does Guven go to the... No, he doesn't defend this time. He stays on the racing line. Later on the brakes, goes defending late.
He moves a little bit to the middle of the track, but as Tenvoorde had not that good exit of the last corner, he knew that he doesn't have to move. But now, again, he has probably one or two spots to go for it. That's Stowe with a bit of luck, but also the last chicane where he can try another one Tenvoorde can try to overtake Guven once again.
Oh, spinner! And where's Guven gone? Where's Guven gone? He had to back out of it, and he's allowed Tenvoorde through. And I think, did he get a slowdown as well because he had to go so wide? What drama on the last lap there! And it was Jaap van Lagen, I think, who spun. Yeah, Van Lagen, look at him. Woo! That was close.
Tenvoorde was just lucky in that situation because he almost hit Van Lagen, who spun. But now look, Köhler and Pereira also still fighting.
I've noticed that Pereira thinks that the Hangar Straight is actually a big chicane the last couple of laps. He's been doing that lap after lap to try and shake off the attentions of Leon Köhler, but the lead battle has been established and settled by a veteran of the Super Cup spinning in front of Larry ten Voorde and Guven, and ten Voorde therefore takes the victory. It's 2 apiece for the 2 drivers. Guven comes over the line in 2nd position, and Pereira picks up the podium spot in 3rd, just ahead of Köhler. Here is the Tag Heuer car of Lawrence Vanthoor, who will pick up 9th position. Nick Tandy, I think, finished just ahead of him. And then Stephen Grove further back. So this is the battle for 17th position. Grove and Philippe Sager, who didn't have to go into pit lane. They both look like they have cars with a bit of damage, but battles all the way through. And of course, we do have the Pro-Ams and the Rookie Cups as well to pay attention to in the results standings. But what a story. 25 minutes of defensive driving from Guven, only to just choose the wrong side when a car spins in front of him. Oh, dearie me. Not on the last corner, boys. Behave. Oh, dear. At least they're having fun, eh? Oh, no. Oh, no. Are they going to make it to the finishing line? They've collected the 9 car of Jean-Baptiste Simenauer, who's, I think, ended up on his side. And I don't think that car's got any steering whatsoever. Here comes Grove. And you see, the finishing line is there, not further back. There is a line further back, but on this version of the game, the finishing line's in the middle of the track there. So just having to get all these cars over the line, and it's proving tricky to get everybody finished. But here comes, I think, one of the last of the cars, which is Roar Lindland. We saw him having a bit of chaos further in the middle of the race, half spin. I'm sure he has had more than one half spin. And he comes towards the line and picks up what will be, I think, something like 21st position, because you've got cars who've basically retired at the last turn. So that plays into the results. But let's have a look at the race 2 results here from Silverstone. Larry ten Voorde takes victory ahead of Guven, and Dylan Pereira in 3rd. That is exactly the result we saw in Barcelona in race 2. Leon Köhler in 4th, Nick Tandy 5th, Jackson Evans a great recovery drive to 6th position, with Jaden Conright in 7th, Lawrence Vanthoor in 8th after a spin, Patrick Pilet, a great opening weekend for him, in 9th, and Marvin Klein in 10th. Much less of the spacing back that we saw in race 1. Christian Engelhardt able to finish the race this time in 11th, with Max van Splinteren, remember, spinning out of a podium contention in 12th spot. His teammate behind him in 13th, and Jordan Love in 14th position. He retired out of race 1, so he'll be happy with some points. And Pontus Fredriksson in 15th, the last of the point scorers. Mark Sinney was the first of the Pro-Ams in 18th spot for Team Australia, ahead of Matteo Loren, and Roar Lindland in 20th. I think was the last. No, there's a couple of guys behind him. Philip Sager and Stephen Grove, having had that accident, they finished the last of the guys on the lead lap. Jean-Baptiste Simenauer, because he retired on the last corner, actually ends up a lap down. Jaap van Lagen 24th. What a story he had, because he didn't have much of a race, but he was pivotal in the race result. Clement Mathieu, Simonis Silvestro retiring, lots of drivers retiring at the start of the race, sadly. Marius Nakin, Sven Muller, Richard Leitz and Julian Endelauer all out of the race after 2 laps.
Yeah, so I'm really much looking forward when these guys, and mainly Simona de Silvestro, she's picking up her first points, because she's always so unlucky, and I would like to see our female drivers also in the top 10 at least, because she has the performance to do it, but she's just unlucky right in the beginning of all the races, as Richard Leitz as well. So they are not slow, they're not slow at all, but they are just unlucky, and I think that's one thing they can work on to survive lap number 1, and then you see it's good to, and you can climb up as Patrick Pilet did.
Let's have a quick replay then of a couple of things that happened in the race before we have to say goodbye to you. Very, very entertaining second race. By the way, championship points, you won't see these on screen, but they are absolutely on. Unless Guven gets a penalty for what happened in race 1 here at Silverstone, they will be equal on points. So here is the last lap of the race. On board with Larry ten Voorde. He's been trying all race to try and get past Guven ahead of him. Been clean as you like. Guven has come down this straight, fully left-hand side, but this time decides to sort of sit in the middle of the road. Ten Voorde doesn't know which way to go. Knows that it's a tricky one to complete through these 2 turns. And just waits and waits and waits for an opportunity. You can see Jaap van Lagen just ahead there, look. You wouldn't expect Van Lagen to be a spinner, to be honest. And then this happens. Over the line towards Kops. Guven can't see at all, and you could just about see Van Lagen spinning, and they both get out of it, didn't they? They both came off the throttle.
Yeah, they both came off the throttle. And did you see how ten Voorde was just fighting with his steering wheel to decide which way to go? And he was just the lucky one who was on the right side, because Guven was also lucky to pass Van Lagen without any damage, but he was just unlucky that he had to go the outside line and picked up an slowdown penalty. Because of that, he was too far on the outside, and then the simulation is saying, okay, you are too far on the outside. You see here, he has to slow down for picking up the slowdown penalty.
I assume, Jan, that you wouldn't teach to go to the outside when the car is going outwards. Presumably that is just simply a subconscious reaction from Guven just to try and save the car.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. He just had to decide whether to go left or right, and so he decided to go left. So, and you do not think about it.
So this is what it looked like on board with Guven. Presumably difficult also once you've committed to the turn to tighten your line. It's easy when you're on the ragged edge. So he turns in, yeah, and it makes sense to go left there, doesn't
Yes.
it? From his view, it makes sense to go left. He would have spun if he'd tried to tighten the line at that speed.
Yes, there was no way to do it different. So he had to go on the left-hand side. But then I know he's experienced in iRacing as well, so he knew that he will pick up a penalty for that. But in the end, he finished second, so he didn't crash, and so that's the most important. So he finished, and so now, as you say, they are equal in points.
Equal on points after 2 wins apiece between Larry ten Voorde, the Dutchman, and Ayhan Guven, the Porsche junior driver from Turkey. Both waiting patiently to take their places on the grid of the real Super Cup when it starts. But for the moment, they're having to settle with the podium of the virtual edition. There's money involved in winning this as well. Dylan Pereira at 3rd position, his 3rd podium. That should bring him back up into 3rd in the championship, I would have thought. Leon Köhler having a great weekend at Silverstone in 4th day, I should say, rather than weekend. Nick Tandy, 5th position. 2 solid results from Tandy. He'll be much happier finishing his iRacing today. Jackson Evans in 6th after a spin. Jaden Conright, I think that was probably his best result of his season so far. Lauren Van Thor in 8th position. A good showing from Lawrence as well. He's improving every time he steps into one of these races. Patrick Pilet, his first real competition on iRacing, and showing that he's definitely got a bit of a future doing this competition. 9th position, and Marvin Klein in 10th was the 3rd of our rookie drivers.
Yeah, so another intense race we saw, or 2 races we saw at Silverstone, and now we're really much looking forward to your favorite track and one of my favorite tracks, to Spa-Francorchamps for the next 2 rounds of the virtual version of the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup.
And great thing is you don't have to wait very long. We'll be racing at Spa next weekend, next Saturday. So please make sure you join us at Spa-Francorchamps in the same way that you've been joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you along. I hope you've enjoyed a fantastic battle between ten Voorde and Guven. It will carry on. Cheers again. So impressive to see how. Sorry, it's been very impressive to see how hard. I mean, Jan, just put into context a little bit how hard it would have been for Guven to drive the way he did, 25 minutes through the race, not really ever on the racing line properly.
Yes, so it is mentally really hard, and he was fighting like hell. I think he was maybe thinking that the tires of Den Vorde also maybe he tries to squeeze out everything out of it. But in the end, the decider was Jaap van Lachen, and in sim racing a back marker, but he's not in real racing, to be honest. But here, he spun, and he decided after 24 minutes, he decided the race. So, and that is impressive. And I'm really much looking forward to another 4 races with these 2 guys in front, and also another and also the fights we had in the middle of the pack.
In terms of improvers from the first round, I have to say that race 1 result of Max van Splunteren, you would expect to see him further up the results of race 2, other than that, obviously, that spin. But I think for me, he's got to be the biggest improver from what we saw from Barcelona. He really seems to have got a handle now of what he needs to do on this.
Yes, so I mean, there are, compared to Barcelona, there are a few drivers in the results here. We really didn't see them, but now you see I think there's also a lot of testing happening in between the races, and now they have another week to go for testing and practicing, and then there will even more drivers be there in front. And I'm really much looking forward to see Pilet after his debut here for the next round at Spa.
A replay then of the last lap of race 1. So, Jan, if you were a race steward, I know you've been a driving standard steward on many a sim race before. How do you see this one?
I don't want to be a race steward in this situation, to be honest. Yeah, I mean,
nobody's listening, by the way. Nobody's listening. It's okay. It's just a chat between you and I.
Yes, sure. Now, to be honest, it was a fair and clear and clean race the whole 25 minutes. But as I say, Guven is also in real racing. He's aggressive. He's not unfair, but he's aggressive in driving. So I mean, and he made his move. He decided to go to the inside. I mean, we're here halfway through the lap of the last lap of these 2, but he decided.
He's quite far away, isn't he?
Yes.
Quite far back.
I think also Den Vorde didn't really expect to something like this happening in the last corner, but so he made his move. He decided to go into the gap, and to be honest, Den Vorde left a little gap. It was not a big gap, but he left a little gap. So for me, it's more 50-50. To be honest, but if I would have to decide, then Guven would get a penalty. If I would have to decide whether him or Den Vorde.
Now remember that Guven was actually hassling him a couple of laps before, so he backed off at this point. But the way that he caught in these last couple of corners was very impressive. He went into Magnussen and Beckett's about a second back, and now he's right on the tail. It's quite a long way back, though.
And now look, everything is fine here. And now there's the little gap, which isn't really there. So, and from this angle, from this angle, it is more obvious. It is more obvious that Guven didn't really had a gap to go in. To be honest,
Guven was miles back going into the braking zone. Have a look again from a different view. Yeah, there's no chance you're going to overtake coming in here. Look how far. But it's almost as though Ten Vorde is too slow going through the chicane.
Yes, he slowed down in the left-hander too much, and so that was the chance for Guven to close the gap.
And Guven obviously carrying a lot of speed. in a way, was there anything that Guven could have done to slow the car down there? Because he was so much faster.
That was his move. He was too fast for the left-hander, to be honest. So that's why he carried all the speed into the right-hander. But the 10-Forder didn't really expect him to be next to him. So that's why you see he's far away here. But then he's braking really late, opening the brakes, and now go for the gap. But you see, there he just was overshooting. So I think it is more Guven's mistake and fault to do that than 10-Forder turning in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jan Seifert, the driving standards advisor, has now made his decision, even though he said he wasn't going to. I knew I'd get something out of you.
Yeah. It's just me and you.
So there we go. Maybe that will be the story, because we're halfway through the season now. They're equal on points. We could easily see 10-Forder and Guven do the same thing again. Race 1 go to one and race 2 go to the other. But if there is some penalty points handed out to Guven, that could decide the championship.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we saw in this situation the decider of the championship, probably. So we will have an eye on it. As you say, we are halfway through, and the decision will be made between these two. I think we can say after halfway through. But I mean, it wouldn't be a nice decision about that, because we want to see it on the track, to let them fight on the track and. Let the best win, but maybe it was like this.
There is a result then. 10-Forder's win over Guven in race 2, with Pereira in 3rd. And really, you have to say, there is a battle perhaps for 3rd position in the championship, but we don't know who's going to win, 10-Forder versus Guven, and maybe the classic thing of, do you need more than 2 cars to make an entertaining race? And to be honest, take away everybody else and that would still be a fantastic race, wouldn't it? The two of them battling it out. Let's watch a little bit of celebrity bad driving. Sorry, Nick. I know that you do watch. I apologise. How bad was this start from Tandy? Sitting 4th position on the grid. He's got Guven ahead of him. What happened here?
He was just... I think his reaction was just way too late, because he didn't really have wheel spin, because everybody else was just starting and moving, and he was still standing.
Yeah, as you say, no wheel spin, so he could have bogged down a little bit, perhaps. He was lucky to avoid Van Thor there, and he had another car coming hot into his tail, but again was lucky to lose out. But at least he didn't, in the end, lose that many positions, but certainly he should have been right up the sharp end of things, coming down here, rather than where he was.
Yes, so, it was for sure his fault, but to be honest, the start here is like in the real Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup. So you really have to play with clutch and throttle, and you really have to get the feeling for it. And maybe something in between these did not really work out, and so that's why he was not able to start on point.
What happens if you don't have a clutch though on your system? Because so many of these steering wheels and pedal setups don't have clutches.
I mean, you can have a 3-pedal system, like throttle, brakes, and clutch. Then it's easy. But you can also adjust your steering wheel with a clutch, maybe a button or a pedal or whatever. So you can adjust everything like we said before.
Well, if you want to continue watching your virtual racing, Porsche is taking part in Formula E's virtual race happening right now. So go and search that one out and see how Neil Jarni and Andrea Lotterer are getting on. And if you enjoyed what you watched here, we will be with you next weekend. Next Saturday, same time, same place, same us. But a different circuit. Spa-Francorchamps, my favourite track in the world. And we'll be racing there, hopefully virtually and in the real world in September as well. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.